So Jeremy, when did you start using drugs and alcohol, and what kind of got you involved?
I started using drugs and alcohol at the age of 16. I started smoking pot. And that same year, I drank for the first time, got drunk. And it was a social thing. It was things my friends were doing. It was about having fun. It was not about being a bad person or anything like that. It was about strictly having fun.
So you were curious?
I was curious. Yeah, I was definitely curious. I mean, I smoked this substance, and it dramatically changed my consciousness in a way that I found very pleasant, and I felt whole. When I was drunk, I was able to socialize better, talk to girls, things like that. It made me feel confident.
And did it progress? Did you move on to harder things?
Yes, it definitely progressed. When I found out that smoking pot made me feel good, the next thing I did was I found out that if you put a little piece of paper in your mouth, you would visually see things, you would hallucinate, and the world would change dramatically, even more so. So, of course, I had to try that, because I was curious. I mean, it was a sort of a childlike curiosity that led me down this road. And with that same mindset of trying this and trying that, eventually I did cross over into addictive substances like heroin and cocaine and benzodiazepine.
What was living addicted to heroin or cocaine or benzodiazepines? What did your life kind of center on?
Nothing could compete with dope. I'll talk about heroin. That was my drug of choice. There was no relationship, there was no mother praying for me, or wife, or employer, or the police officer or judge that could tell me, they all said, you need to stop, you need to change your ways, and there was nothing that could compete. There was no relationship that was worth quitting using over. It was number one, and I would say that my life on heroin was like I was standing on the sidelines of life, watching the dreams of others come true. The people I went to school with, my coworkers, they'd gain things materially and houses, cars, and they'd have good relationships. And I was barely keeping my head above water, trying to survive. I think the metaphor of the hijacked brain, I think, is really accurate.
It was the only thing you cared about.
It was all. I mean, I was physiologically addicted. I was addicted to it, and my brain, there was nothing that could compete with that kind of
Hi.
with that high, yeah, with that power.
So how did life become unmanageable for you personally? What were some of the personal consequences?
The lifestyle in itself, I look at heroin addiction like you're meeting some dude in a ghetto alley buying 24 hours of life, $20 bags at a time. And also, I've had my house foreclosed on. I managed to buy a house in my early 20s, and I lost it by the time I was 30. Divorced. I've seen a lot of people pass away young, in their 20s, early 20s too. As a result of heroin addiction, I got hepatitis C. I did lose a job. I lost a job. The one thing that I always said that made me normal, like at least I have a good union job. And after 19 years, I lost that job.
So how'd you get sober? How'd you find recovery?
Well, I had gone to treatment several times. It was kind of like when I was at the end of the rope, I would go to detox. And then I would go into a 28-day treatment facility, and I would go in there, and my mindset was, I think, good. I wanted to recover. I wasn't there just to take a break and go back to using. I really wanted to stay clean, and I wanted to have a good life, just like everybody else does, So I would go in there, and I was introduced to the 12-step fellowship through the inpatient treatment stays, and I would leave. They would give me a treatment plan, and they would say, you need to go to a sober living facility or a long-term extended treatment or a halfway house. I would still have a job and a car, so I would kind of laugh at the counselor and to myself, I would think, no, I'm not going to do that. Go live with a bunch of guys in a house. It's ridiculous, I have a place to live. So I'd leave the treatment facility, and I would make an attempt at the meetings, not wholehearted. Long story short, it would be a matter of time, a month or so.
So you didn't change your environment?
I didn't change my environment at all. No, I went back to the same place. And, not to say that a person can't get clean or sober where they live, but it was definitely not, it was something that I couldn't do, So the last time I went to treatment, I had lost my car. I totaled my car, caught a case, a hit-and-run case, lost my house and my job. And I was in a treatment center, and I was 36 years old, and I was completely broken. I was, I was shattered. I didn't know what I was going to do. I was really depressed, and I came to a fork in the road where it was like, I knew, being in that treatment facility, I knew that I could either leave and go on using drugs and alcohol and to the bitter ends, but I knew what that would result in: jails, institutions, and death. I wasn't confused about that. I knew that the prognosis wouldn't be good. I could do that, or I could try to find a new way to live. And in trying to find a new way to live, I had to become humble and be willing to take direction. And, that's what I chose. Luckily, thank God, I chose to go to the center, the Pathway to Sobriety program at the center in Palos Park. And I went there, and I really worked steps for the first time with a sponsor. I learned about spiritual principles, honesty, open-mindedness, willingness, and I began to apply these principles in my life, and I started practicing the golden rule, treating others the way I'd like to be treated. Really simple things, that really never occurred to me before.
And how has recovery changed your life?
Recovery has changed my life dramatically. Who I am today is completely different than years ago. I have, on March 25th, I'll have 3 years clean and sober. And my life today involves working at the center and still active in the 12-step fellowship. I go to school at Marion Valley. I'm going to graduate in May with an associate's degree in addiction studies, and I plan on giving back and helping people who are in the same predicament I was in out. I believe that helping others is the highest aspiration of the human heart, and if I have the ability or the opportunity to do so, that's what I want to do.
So what would you say, Jeremy? You made a pretty profound statement when you said, not the police, not my parents, not my employer, no one could persuade me, no one could break the power over heroin, and yet you have found recovery over a very addictive substance. Mm-hmm. What was that miracle for you?
It's hard to say. It does have to come from within. That's not to say we shouldn't have interventions and guide people towards treatment. Oftentimes you hear people say, well, the person's just not ready, or the person hasn't hit bottom yet. And, I don't really believe that. I think the best approach is prevention. But for me, I think I just gotten to the point where I'd really drove this addiction till the wheels fell off.
When it sounds like you got real honest, I've always told people there's 3 tenets of recovery. It's honesty, humility, and accountability. And you got honest with yourself. You took a firm look at yourself. You humbled yourself. You were teachable. So many people come into treatment and they've got their plan.
Right.
They're the ones that have all the problems and their life's a mess, but they've got the plan for what's going to get them out of this. Their
Right.
best thinking got them there, but they think, oh, I can do this now.
Yeah.
So you took the counsel and then you stayed accountable, and you stayed accountable for a length of time, which is so key when we talk about recovery.
Yeah, I mean,
Can
absolutely.
you talk about accountability at all? Because so many people don't want to be accountable to nobody.
Right, right. Well, accountability is extremely important. I mean, when I would leave treatment centers before, and then I would go back to my house, and there was nobody there. I was alone.
And I bet you tried outpatient?
And I tried
I
outpatient.
bet you used?
And I did use, yeah,
Dabbled while you were
yeah,
outpatient?
yes, I did.
The center kept you accountable. Having those guys there in the same place, having a sponsor.
Yeah, the center did keep me accountable. The sponsorship is accountability. There's a lot of different things.
And what do you say to people that say, 12 steps, I went to a meeting, I didn't like it?
I would say try another meeting. There's no shortage of meetings. AA or NA, just pick a fellowship, get a meeting schedule, and try them. They're different in every area. A meeting in one location might be completely different than another location. I think of how far I was willing to go to score heroin. How far are you willing to go to save your life in recovery? We go through blizzards to drink and use drugs, but we can't take 12 steps to save our own lives. It doesn't make sense to me. I mean, you have to want it, and there's really no other way to put it. I mean, if you want it, you'll find the good meetings, and you'll find a good home group, and you have accountability with the people there, and you just know when it's right for you. When you hear that environment of recovery that you feel like if it resonates with you, that's where you're supposed to be. And I've been to plenty of meetings that were, just ridiculous, like circuses. It's like.
But you kept going.
But I kept going, and some of them were so bad that I'm like, I'm not going back to this one. But for every bad meeting, there's like 10 good ones. So that's really no excuse.
And how has working the 12 steps changed your life?
I mean, that's the meat and potatoes of recovery, really. I mean, the first step, admitting that I'm powerless over drugs and alcohol, and to me that means that if I used one thing, if I smoke one joint or drink a beer, all bets are off. And the second step, coming to believe, in that higher power, that these people here, that this environment of recovery, I can find a place and a home in it and thrive. And the third step, is my favorite step when I turn my will over to the care of God as I understand Him. The 12 steps have been really important to me. I mean, I believe in abstinence-based recovery. I don't believe in, any of the methadone maintenance or Suboxone and all that. No, that's not what I stand for. I stand for abstinence-based recovery. Well, for the 10% of the population that can't drink or use drugs recreationally, abstinence-based recovery is the only answer I've found. The only thing that works for me.
Because I've met patients that say, look, I'll give up the heroin, Rachel, or I'll give up the crack.
Right.
I'm not giving up my alcohol, and I'm not giving up my weed.
When I first came to the program, I had ideas. I mean, it sure would seem nice to be able to smoke some pot every once in a while, you know what I mean? And you had these kinds of ideas, But the problem is, I've tried that, and it didn't work. The marijuana maintenance program, going to meetings, still smoking pot. What I find is that when you use any mood or mind altering substance, if you are part of that population who can't use these drugs successfully, when you use any mood or mind altering drug, what happens is you block the relationship with your higher power. It's like, that's what I've experienced.
So is living in recovery, are you still having fun?
Yeah, oh yeah, my life is rich and full today. I mean, I'm busy quite a bit. I'm active in a meditation group. I do Vipassana meditation and practice yoga. Working, going to school. I have a girlfriend that I love, and
How about, are you a better dad?
And I'm a better dad as well. Yes, I visit my daughter and talk to her. I have a good relationship with her. And I'm lucky I was able to salvage that because I really wasn't showing up for her life the way I should have been, the way a father should during my addiction. So now I'm able to show up for her when she needs me, and that's a real blessing.